Welcome to Grit, the Real Estate Growth Mindset podcast, hosted by Brian Charlesworth, founder of Sisu. Sisu provides growth automation software for real estate. You'll hear stories from real estate thought and technology leaders, team owners, and brokers on how they grew their business in a rapidly changing industry. You'll learn how to transform your brokerage and teams into a high-performing and analytics-driven business so you have a new, durable, competitive advantage against disruption in your market. So let's get right into it.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Grit Podcast. I'm Brian Charlesworth. I'm the host of the show and also the founder and CEO of Sisu, the real estate software company that is really streamlining and automating the entire real estate business. And today I have a special guest. I'm excited about this. We have done a lot on mindset, and we're going to talk about mindset today. We have not done a lot on real estate investing in a long time. And we're going to hit on that as well. But I have a special guest, Rod Khleif, with me. Is that the correct pronunciation, Rod?
Yep. Thank you.
Perfect.
Yes.
Good. So Rod is, he's made and lost 50 million. I'll start with that. We're going to hear his story here in a minute. Congratulations on that one. That's
right.
I respect anyone that does that. And I know he's building it back up as well right now. So having a lot of fun. So Rod's a business owner, real estate investor, philanthropist. He's an author, and he's a podcaster that's been going about 5 years and has a huge number of downloads. So many of you will probably want to jump in and get into that podcast as well if you're not familiar with it. So we'll hit on all of those things today. But Rod, why don't we start by just letting you kind of give us your background and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. So I'm going to go back a ways because I think it'll lend some framework to what we're going to talk about. So I immigrated to this country when I was 6 years old with my brother Albert, my mother's Vansha. I was born in the Netherlands, Holland, think wooden shoes and windmills. And we ended up in Denver, Colorado. And I will tell you, when we first got there, we really struggled for years. I remember eating expired food because that's where my mom bought food at expired food store. We got, had powdered milk with our cereal in the morning instead of real milk because it was cheaper. And I wore clothes from the Goodwill and the Salvation Army all the way through junior high school till I lied about my age at Burger King and got a job flipping burgers so that I could buy my own clothes and buy a car ultimately. And, I'm sure you've got listeners that may have had it harder than we did, but I'm going to tell you, I knew I wanted more. And so luckily my mom had an incredible work ethic and she babysat kids so we'd have enough money to eat. And with her babysitting money, she was a bit of an entrepreneur. She actually invested in the stock market. She invested in IPOs with no formal education. She also invested in real estate. And with her babysitting money, when I was 14, the first house she bought was right across the street from us for $30,000. When I was 17, she told me that, I don't know if I said that right. When I was 14, she bought that house for $30,000. When I was 17, she told me she'd made $20,000 in her sleep. And I'm like, what? You made $20,000? You didn't do anything? And so I said, screw college. I'm getting into real estate. So I went out and got my real estate broker's license right when I turned 18. And I was a broker. I wasn't just an agent. You could actually do that back then with education. They got smart now. You need some experience before you become a broker. But I was a broker right when I turned 18. I was going to sell real estate. And so my first year in real estate, 1978, I made about, maybe 8 to 10 grand. My second year, about 10 to 12 grand. But my third year, I made over $100,000, which back in 1980 was pretty decent change. And so what happened between year 2 and year 3 that caused me to 10X my income? Well, what happened was I met a guy, I actually dated his daughter, that taught me about the importance of mindset and psychology and how truly 80 to 90% of your success in anything is just that, your mindset and psychology. And fast forward to today, I've owned over 2,000 houses that I've rented long-term in 3 states. I've owned thousands of apartment units. In 2006, my net worth went up $17 million while I slept. And you're thinking, wow, that's impressive. And so did I. I thought I was a freaking real estate god. And, my head got so big, I could barely fit it through a door. And when that happens, God or the universe or whatever you believe will give you a nice little smack. Well, that was 2008. And like you said, I lost $50 million in 2008. And you told me you did as well, which is freaking awesome because I've never met anybody that has. So this is I always tell people, if you know somebody lost that much, let me know so I feel better about myself. So now I feel better. No, I'm just kidding. But
good. Whatever I can do to help you with that mindset.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Right?
Yeah. So anyway, I lost it all and I thought I was set for life. And so one of the things that I'm known for, like I said, you mentioned my podcast, it's called Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. And I've had 11.5 million downloads. I'm really proud of it. And one of the things I'm known for is mindset and psychology. And the mindset it took to have 50 million to lose in the first place. And then maybe as important or more important, how to recover from that to the success that I'm blessed to have today. And it was all mindset and psychology. So, I'd love to drill down on that with you if you like.
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. So anyway, excited to dig in. So let's just start with mindset.
What I get asked a lot is, how did you recover? So if you want, I'll just roll with that question because it's people killed themselves back in the Great Depression and in this last contraction over losing that much or less,
let's talk about it. So the market crashes in 2008 and I think you had 2,000 plus.
Back then I had 800 houses and I had several apartment complexes.
Okay.
And so why I crashed, let me explain that for a minute, because that's important. People always ask, because let me tell you something. I was only at a 30% loan to value. People thought I was over leveraged. I only owed 30 cents on the dollar and I still crashed and burned. And here's why. It's never about value. It's about cash flow. In fact, I wrote a best-selling book called How to Create Lifetime Cash Flow Through Multifamily Properties. But the subtitle is The New Rules of Real Estate Investing, i.e. the new rules being focused on cash flow. Don't tell me what it sold for 10 years ago and you can buy it now, because that's irrelevant.
Yeah.
How well does it cash flow? And this is a relevant conversation because I think we're heading into a contraction at some point here. I think this current administration's hell-bent on making it happen is what it feels like to me, but be that as it may, we won't go down that rabbit hole. But the point is, cash flow is what's most important. And so back then I had those 800 houses and so let me explain what happened. They were all in Florida. So there's a couple of key pieces here. One, Florida has no state income tax. So property taxes are higher, okay, which impacts cash flow, right? And I had properties up and down the Gulf Coast of Florida. So I had properties in wind and flood zones, higher insurance, which impacts cash flow. But what killed me was if I sent a maintenance guy to one of my apartment complexes, everything's the same. The plumbing parts are the same, the electrical parts, the locks, the HVAC, the appliances, windows, everything. And so we could stockpile some parts and they're in and out in an hour. Okay, well, if I had to send someone to one of my 800 houses, first of all, they got to get there. That could be an hour and a half round trip or even one way in some cases. I had houses as far as 2 hours away and they've got to get there, see what's wrong. Every house is different, right? Then they got to go find a Home Depot or a Lowe's where we have an account. And that could be an hour round trip. And I don't know about you, Brian, but when Rod's happy ass tries to fix something, usually I go to Home Depot more than once because I forget something or do something wrong. And so, and then that happens with maintenance guys as well. And so, what took an hour at one of my apartment complexes took all day at one of my 800 houses. Now, these were C-class houses. And that's an important piece here. There's A, B, C, and D houses. D's the hood, A's, primo, brand new. But these were C-class houses. So, they're older, so they have more maintenance. But also that demographic is harder on properties. So you're going to have a lot more maintenance. And so that really killed my cash flow. But then the coup de grace, as it were, is, back then I wasn't paying attention to demographics. If a person had good credit, they had, a good job or whatever, I didn't pay attention to demographics. And so what I discovered was I had a lot of jobbers, contractors, plumbers, electricians, drywallers, painters, roofers, and their work fell off a cliff in 2008 and 2009. And so they didn't have work. And it was like the perfect storm. And what's interesting, Brian, is my portfolio by the end of 2009 and early 2010 actually went upside down. It dropped more than 70%. So anyway, I threw in the towel and it was very painful. Like I said, I thought.
So what does that mean? What does that mean? You threw in the towel?
Well, it means they all went into foreclosure. I had hundreds of foreclosures. I didn't give up in life. I gave up on that portfolio, and I really didn't give up. Actually, I actually transformed. I did quite a few things. I actually built a litigation support company to help people fight foreclosures. I built law firms in 5 states, and we'd stop a foreclosure through litigation. Then we had a back office that helped them loan mod, and we saved thousands of houses. And it was a business I started that I sold a couple of years ago. and we literally helped thousands of families save their homes. I hated the business though, because it's just negative. People aren't happy when they're losing their houses, and litigation's no fun, and just all that. But
when you're going through it and you feel the pain, you want to solve the problem. And I think like that's how so many businesses are built, right? You go through a struggle, you feel the pain, and then you say, I'm going to solve this. And so anyway, I think it's great that you build a new business.
Seminars. I call them seminars, right? I mean, they're only a failure if you don't get back up and you don't get the lesson. And, I've actually built 27 businesses, and several have been worth tens of millions of dollars. Most have been spectacular flaming seminars. We fail our way to success, right? I got to meet the billionaire owner of Spanx, Sarah Blakely, beautiful human being, the women's undergarments. And she started with $5,000, and now I think she just sold it actually for $1 billion. I thought
several billion. She was worth $1 billion. She was worth $1 billion over a year ago. Yeah.
No kidding. Well, there you go.
Yeah. So Blackstone just bought it.
No, I had heard. Okay. So that's true. So you've just verified it. I wasn't sure, but that's wow. Good for her. She's a beautiful human being. But I met her at her mastermind, and her husband's really cool too, by the way. But I met her at a mastermind, and she told me that her dad used to tell her or ask her and her brother, on a regular basis, what have you failed at? And I thought, what a fantastic question to ask your kids to, and he would be, irritated with them if they hadn't tried something and failed. And what a great way to pre-frame to not fear failure. Because as you as well as probably the best person I've ever met, like me, we fail our way to success. Right. And so anyway, but yeah.
So I want to share a quick story with you. So Sarah Blakely's husband does this thing called, I think it's called 2929.
Runs up the mountain?
Yeah. So anyway, my wife signed me and her up to go do that next summer.
Wow.
It's actually at the Snow Basin one here in Utah. We actually wanted to go up to Canada, but who knows with COVID if we'll be able to get into Canada, right? So anyway, we signed up to do it here next year. So anyway,
very
I'm
cool.
Excited for that.
Yeah, he's a treat. I got to see him speak, and he built that. I think something to do with planes, and he's got the long hair. Just they're cool people. But anyway, I digress. But anyway, so how did I recover? So I'll tell you how I recovered. I don't know how you recovered, but I'll tell you how I recovered. Okay, so I reassociated with what I wanted and why I wanted it. So like I do live events now, and
before you talk about that, can you talk about the pain a little bit? Like
we just have to suffer a little more. Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, really, because everyone goes through that. And it's not like you were just like back on your feet in a day. I mean, I don't know how long it took you to get over that.
Well, I hid under a rock for a few months, but here's one of the other pieces of why I was able to recover quickly is I was in an incredible peer group. So at the time I was in Tony Robbins Platinum Partnership, and there were guys there that were killing it through all this crash, and they're like, "Oh, stop whining, get up off your ass, go make something happen." And so that's one key piece here, guys. Those of you listening, peer group is incredible. You show me your 3 best friends, I'll show you who you are, not just your financial, your relationship, your health, everything, because you are the people you hang out with, as you know, Brian. So I was around that group, which really helped a lot. But no, don't get me wrong. I mean, I was pissing and moaning because I lost everything, and I truly thought I was set for life. I really believed that. I thought 80 million baby boomers getting old, getting cold. Florida was recession proof. Well, it was freaking ground zero for the contraction. And so, but
the one thing I'd like to add to that is, as long as you blame it on somebody else, it's always going to stay with you. Mm-hmm. But the minute you take the accountability for what happened, because we are accountable for everything that happens in our lives.
100%
the minute you take that, now you can move forward.
That's it. 100% responsibility. It's not your dog, your cat, your spouse. It's you, the good and the bad. You just got to own it. And that's very freeing. But a lot of people don't. A lot of people, will also let it become their story or their identity, and it's negative, and it disempowers them, and they can't move forward. So you got to pay attention to that too. Don't marry the vehicle you're using. Okay. Like, for example, you may have a setback and a failure, but you're not a failure. Okay. It's that endeavor. Again, I've built 27 businesses, and most of them haven't made it, but we become stronger and we grow from those experiences. So, yeah. So, if you come to one of my boot camps, for example, one of the first things we do is we do a goal setting workshop on steroids. Okay. And why? Well, for me, that's how I recovered, was reassociating with what I wanted and why I wanted it. But here's the bottom line is, how the hell are you going to get anything if you don't know what it is, right? You need to know what it is you want with clarity and why you want it. And so, yeah, and I'm super excited because I don't know when this will go live, but I've got a boot camp coming in December 3rd, and I'm finally able to go live again because I've been doing a live stream now for ever since COVID hit. I've had thousands of people attend, but it's brutal because it's me for days, and I've got my poker faced videographer looking at me. I don't have any of that feedback and that love and, all that from a live event. So I'm super excited. I've got one coming, and I'll give your listeners an awesome, let me mention something here. I know you have a lot of realtors and brokers and broker team leaders and things like that on your show. And guys, I hope to God you're building some cash flow from something other than your real estate sales. Okay. And, if you don't go to work or you get sick or you get hit by a car or whatever, the income stops. But if you bought some cash flowing assets, then that doesn't happen. And you're in the perfect position to kick butt in what I do, which is like multifamily real estate or real estate in general, buying it and renting it out. And I would push you to do multifamily instead of single family. That's the reason I started my podcast, was to get that message out there, because it was the houses that pulled me down. My multifamily, if I hadn't cross-collateralized those apartment complexes with packages of houses to save a few basis points on interest, I would still have those apartment complexes. So, they're much more recession resistant. And, multifamily when it crashed, pulled back, 10, 11% nationwide. But what was fascinating is within 3 years, the rents exceeded pre-crash levels. That's how fast it bounced back. And even with this COVID thing, except for the blue states, was a blip, So, multifamily is an awesome vehicle for cash flow. And for you guys that are in the real estate business, for God's sakes, there's nothing better for you because you're in the perfect position to find the best deals. So again,
well, while you're talking about that, I have a quick question for you. So multifamily is what you push. That's your message. I'd love to get your thoughts on Airbnb. I know a lot of people now that are making a lot more money with Airbnb and those types of rentals versus somebody's in there, for a year or two, right? Yeah, no,
listen, I'm not an expert in Airbnb. It's an incredible business model. We are going to try it at a couple of our complexes. And and what's interesting is you would think that you would make the real money in the resort areas, but believe it or not, I think they do better like around big employment hubs and where people are going to get work and things of that nature. I don't know. I know there's some there's a lot of areas have legislation that's pushed by the hotel industry to try to thwart Airbnb, and I know there's areas that have basically made it impossible. So I'd keep an eye on the legislation as far as Airbnb. I met a guy that's killing it with Airbnb, and he was brilliant. I met him at another mastermind that I belong to, and he told me that he always has a separate exit strategy. Like he wants to know he can break even if he has to long-term hold. He wants to know he can sell, if he has to sell. And so I think if you do it that way and you've protected your back end and have multiple exit strategies, I think it's a no-brainer. Okay. Yeah. So nothing negative to say other than just be careful, because I do know the hotel industry's got an incredible lobby and they push to, because obviously it's hurting their revenue. So,
yes.
But anyway, so yeah, my boot camp's December 3rd, 4th, and 5th. It's every aspect of multifamily real estate. It's not a sales pitch. I talk about my coaching for about 30 minutes, maybe on one day, but the other 3 days, all 3 days is content. I've had thousands of people attend my virtual and live events. Only complaint I ever get is the room's too cold or the food sucked or something like that. It's never about the content, but it's, I teach you how to find the deals, how to evaluate them, how to pick an area, how to build a team, because multifamily real estate is a team sport. I teach you how to, finance them, how to raise the money for them. And there's so much money looking for deals right now, how to syndicate, how to joint venture, how to, property manage. But I'm known for mindset. I'm going to tell you, I'm really proud of what I'm going to tell you next. My warrior coaching students, the ones that do invest in coaching, I know the bootcamp attendees have more than this, but my coaching students alone, I've been teaching a little over 3.5 years, between 3.5 and 4 years. They own 46 to 47,000 units. Okay. And that's how long I've been teaching. I'm really proud of that. But, and the reason is is that I'm such a big proponent on mindset. And you come to my event, you will laugh, you will cry, you will be super motivated. You'll create an identity statement. We'll go through goals. And I could describe that goal setting process in about 5 or 10 minutes if you like. It's pretty powerful, even if you can't come. But let me just tell you the deal. If you guys want to come, I'll discount it to $197, which is kind of a duh by itself, but I'll also throw in some really cool stuff. I just created a courage and confidence course, which I'm super proud of. And it's 8 modules just to build your confidence to take action. I've also got my Finding Deals course, which is 10 modules that I'm including as well. So, and I'm going to include my, I've got a best-selling book, #1 bestseller, How to Create Lifetime Cash Flow Through Multifamily Properties, like I said, and I'll give you the PDF of that and the audio version of that. So, you get the course, the 3 days in Orlando, which is a cool place to go anyway. But listen, if you come, let me tell you how to get that price, because it's a special deal. You text multifamily to 72345 and then use the code RODFRIEND. And you'll get the $197 price. It's almost half price off what's posted there now, and it's going to go up from there too. But $197, and you'll get those courses and stuff. And if you come to me Sunday afternoon and you tell me you don't freaking love it, I don't mean like it, I mean love it, I'll give you your money back. No questions asked. I've never had it happen, but hey, this is always the first time. But anyway, so again, text multifamily to 72345, or you can go to multifamilybootcamp.com. But if you just remember the code RODFRIEND. Anyway, thank you for letting me plug that, because I'm really proud of it. And the only reason I let you plug it is because it's like, this is something that everybody in real estate, as you mentioned, should be doing. Right. Because every January 1st, you go back to work. And if something happens, God forbid, even honestly, if there's a market correction, I got to tell you, I feel like we're on the edge of something. I mean, I think this administration is hell bent on making it happen, but we won't go down that rabbit hole. But I think that real estate goes through cycles, and we've been in summer for a long time. I really think we're in fall right now, and what comes after fall, right? So, and if that happens, if you haven't got a short sale business or some other business to capitalize on a contraction, you're going to be in trouble. And so, but here's the other thing. Inflation's coming too. It's already started. But here's the caveat to that. Yes, that hurts a lot of people, but who does it help? Landlords, okay, because you've got fixed debt and your rents are going to go up. I'm just telling you. So there's a plus there. I don't think there's a better hedge for inflation than cash flowing real estate. And I know many of you already have some houses or whatever, but if you want to check out multifamily, I hope you'll check it out. I know you'll be glad you did. I promise you'll be glad you did. So I appreciate you. So just a quick tip here, Rod. Why multifamily versus single family? And I think it's pretty easy, but it's pretty easy. Why multifamily versus single family? Yeah, I've debated that on podcasts before. It's a lot of fun. And, first of all, scale.
If you've been enjoying Grit, please help us continue to grow the channel by leaving a 5-star review and sharing it with a friend. Now back to Grit.
It's as hard to buy a house as it is to buy a 10 unit. Okay. It's the same amount of work. So scale. I just talked to you about the logistics of it. Okay. Maintenance is so much easier if you've got the units all close together like that. So, and the management is so much easier. You can hire competent third-party management, single family management. Most of the companies are like a broker that does it on the side. It's usually pretty crappy. And it's harder to cash flow. It's much harder to cash flow single family than it is a multifamily. And if you've got a single family and it's vacant, you're 100% vacant. You got a 10 unit and you've got 2 or 3 units empty, you can very often still survive quite easily. So there's just a lot of reasons why multifamily is better. Now, let's talk about multifamily versus other asset classes: retail, office, industrial, self-storage. I'm going to say this. I'll just tell you this, like through COVID, none of those other asset classes got help, but renters sure did. We got a few $100,000 in rental assistance payments from tenants that got it from the government. So, just keep that in mind. And I think it's without question the most resilient asset class in the real estate industry, which is why I love it. And, but honestly, at this point, I love teaching more than anything else. I mean, you can see on the wall behind me, I've got literally hundreds of thank you cards. You can't even, the whole wall's covered back here. And again, I've been teaching less than 4 years. And, And so I'm addicted to it because I, and this is not ego. Please know what I'm going to say next is not ego, but I get love probably at least 10 times a day in the form of a DM or a gift or a card or something from people who've, been taking advantage of all the free material I put out there. They've taken action, come to my boot camps, whatever, listen to my podcast and made some changes. So,
well, here's the thing I've seen in life. And what year was that you were a Tony Robbins Platinum Partner?
That was actually 2000. So okay. It was a long time ago. No, I'm sorry. No,
it was 2008, right?
Platinum was 2008. Yes, correct.
2008.
7 and 8. Yeah.
So here's something I've noticed. Like, I've been through every Tony Robbins event. My wife's been through every Tony Robbins event. People who go through that, there's something about it, but it definitely has an impact on your mindset. It definitely has an impact on you wanting to contribute, right? Definitely has an impact on you wanting to grow constantly. Mm-hmm. So growth and contribution being the two things that make us happiest in life.
That's right.
That's why that's why you started this, right?
No, there's no question. There's no question. I mean, you evolve. I just so you know, I followed him around the planet for 20 years. I've been to 2 or 3 events a year for 20 years. I was on his team for 8 years. Okay. So, I mean, yeah, I'm a huge Tony, and guys, if you have an opportunity to see him, just do it. Trust me. You'll be glad you did. You agree, Brian?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, while he's still talking, get out there and see him for sure. But, yeah, no, he's impacted every area of my life, and I give him kudos of almost every opportunity I can. But so my goal setting strategy is modeled around what he taught in his courses and stuff. Because again,
can you tell us a little bit more? I mean, is that something we can dive into a little bit?
Yeah. Now let me dissect that real quick for you, because if you can't come to the boot camp, then this will really help. So if you can take some notes, take some notes. So what you want to do is you want to pick an hour when you're going to be uninterrupted, and make sure you're well hydrated. While I grab a bottle of water here. There. And make sure you're well hydrated. Don't do it after a meal when you're sluggish from a meal. And sit down and write down everything you could possibly want in life. Okay. So not just the couple of things that you're going to do for New Year's resolution that's forgotten by February. I'm talking about your whole life. Write down all the stuff, the cars, the jet skis, the boats, the planes, the whatever it is, everything, all the stuff. Write down how much cash flow you want from your investments in, say, 3 years. And again, in 10 years, write down how much cash you want in the bank in case your stuff hit the fan fund in 3 years. And again, in 10 years, write down. And take the lid off your brain. Imagine if you write it down, you're going to get it, which is not outside the realm of reality. You want a private island, a jet, a yacht, write it down. Because what that does is it starts the process. It triggers something in your brain called your reticular activating system, right? And what that is this subconscious filter. You're not conscious of it, but it points you in the direction your brain thinks you're interested in, that you have an interest in. Like, greatest example is when you first buy a car. You never really notice them. You buy the car, they're everywhere. Were they there before? Of course they were, right? So that's your reticular activating system. So take the lid off your brain, write down everything you could ever possibly want in life. If you're analytical, don't stop and analyze it. Just keep writing. You can always scratch it out later, but don't let the pen leave the paper. Once you can't think of another thing, I want you to also write down everything you want to do in this lifetime. Write a book, climb every mountain over 14,000 feet, the places you want to visit. I've got a travel vision board, for example. I jumping out of a perfectly good airplane. I did that a couple of years ago. I'll never freaking do it again, but it's off the bucket list, right? So whatever it is you want to do, write that down as well. Then, also write down everything you want to learn in this lifetime. You want to learn a foreign language. You want to learn a skill, right? If it's multifamily, for God's sakes, come see me. But whatever it is, write that down. Then lastly, write down who you want to help. We'll do more for others than we'll ever do for ourselves. And this is the fuel. This is the fuel to get you to get up early, stay up late, work a Saturday, to grind a few years like most people won't, so you can live the rest of your life like most people can't. Okay, so take your time with this. It's so freaking important. So write down who you want to help. Like, for example, I bought my parents a house here on a canal when my dad was alive. Bought them a car, took them on cruises. Who do you want to help? Write that down. Then Once you can't think of another thing, I want you to put a time limit on each goal. Put how many years you think it's going to take to achieve it. So put a 1, a 3, a 5, even a 10 or a 20, recognizing that as human beings, we will overestimate what we can do in a year and massively underestimate what we can do in 5, 10, 20 years. I'll give you an example of this. When I was 18, I lived in Denver, of course, but I knew I wanted to live on the beach, and there's no beach in Denver. So, I would visualize the palm trees and the surf and the sand. And 20 years later, I built this $8 million, 10,000 square foot mansion on the beach. I owned the beach on one side. I had my boats on the backside. It was a Gulf to Bay thing. And it was unthinkable when I was 18.
Where was it?
In Sarasota here. Yeah.
Sarasota. Okay.
Yeah. And so, but again, that was unthinkable when I was 18. But I visualized I made it happen. So there's nothing you can't do, be, or have in this country. That's the beautiful thing about living in this amazing country we live in. So once you've put a time limit on each goal, pick your number one goal. I mean, that goal, when you get it, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. That you've arrived when you achieve that goal. Write that on a separate sheet of paper. Then take your top 3 one-year goals, put those on a separate sheet of paper. Leave some room in between them. Now, at this point, you're ahead of 99.9% people on the planet that do a New Year's resolution, like I said, that's forgotten within a month or two. But there's a couple more quick steps. I want you, the goals are important. The goals will push you, they'll pull you, they'll drive you, but it's why those goals are a must. That's the real fuel. So you need to write down under each goal why it's an absolute freaking must for you to achieve it. So, and use emotionally charged words. Words are incredibly powerful. Words like amazing and beautiful and incredible, because words will juice you. So you might say, so I can show my kids what amazing success looks like. So I can show my wife what it means to live a life of incredible abundance. So we can have unlimited freedom to do whatever we want, whenever we want, wherever we want, bring whatever it is, whatever's going to juice you, write that down. Okay. This is really important. And those of you that are analytical, you can't do this in your head. If you're in your head, you're dead. You got to write it down. Okay. Now, once you've got some positive reasons why you must achieve those goals, put some pain in there if you don't. So I don't feel like a failure. So I don't fail my kids, so I don't fail my wife or husband, so I don't live a life of regret. Brian, there was this nurse in Australia. She was a hospice nurse, and she took care of patients when they were about to die. And she asked them a question. And the question was, do you have any regrets? And she wrote a book about it. Her name is Bronnie Ware, and it's called The 5 Regrets of Dying. You know what the number one regret was? It was not living the life I could have lived, living someone else's life, not doing what I know I'm capable of. I can't think of anything worse than that, right? Yeah. And so
that's why you and I have felt so much.
That's right. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? So you've got your positive, negative reasons why. The last thing you must do is you must get pictures of your goals or make declarations. Let me give you some examples of this. So a great public example is Jim Carrey. Okay. Jim Carrey, when he was flat broke, wrote himself a check for $10 million. The actor, the comedian is who I'm talking about here. And for those of you that are millennials, a check is something we used to use to pay for things. Now it's, of course, Venmo or whatever, Zillow or whatever. But anyway, so he wrote himself a check, and he'd go up by the Hollywood sign, flat broke, and he'd look at it and visualize cashing it. And that's how much money he made for Dumb and Dumber. I'll give you more recent examples.
So do you know that I heard that story maybe 10 years ago?
Yeah.
Ever since then, I carry a check in my wallet for $2 billion.
No shit. I've got a sign on my wall here. I don't know if you can see it. It says 1 million per month. Can you see that under my window there?
Yes.
This stuff works, guys. Okay. I'm just telling you. I know some of you analytical ones are, come on, get on with the real estate stuff. This is more important than the real estate stuff. Trust me on this. Yep. Okay. I've got a sign.
You say it's 80 to 90% mindset, but personally, I believe it's 100% mindset, because without the mindset, you're not going to do it.
That's right. I've got a sign above my bed that used to say 100,000 a month. And my wife hated it. Now, of course, it says $1 million a month, and she hates that one too. But because it works, okay. But anyway, so get pictures. Demi Lovato is another great example. So 11 years ago, when she was unknown, posted on social media, one day I'm going to sing the national anthem in the Super Bowl. One day.
Yeah.
Oh, not this last one, the one before. See who sang the national anthem. I'll give you some personal examples for me. And please know I'm not bragging with these examples. I'm just hoping to inspire you, okay? This stuff doesn't even interest me anymore, but I'm hoping to inspire you. So when I got my broker's license, I figured I had to have a 4-door car to show houses, right? And so I bought this bone ugly gray Ford Granada, piece of crap, bench seat in the front. But then the guy I told you about that first taught me about mindset, Tony was after that, I dated his daughter, and he had 2 Corvettes. And he let me drive one. And I'm like, oh, good God, this is freaking amazing. So I got a picture out of a magazine. This is before the internet, of a Corvette. I put it on the visor of this bone ugly Granada. Within a year or two, I had a beautiful Corvette. And now this is back when the TV show Magnum PI was out. Okay. Detective, who's the actor? Tom Selleck. And he drove this Ferrari 308. It was the first time I'd seen an exotic. And I'm like, oh my God, I got a picture of that actual car out of a magazine, put on the visor of my Corvette. Within a year or two, I had a Maserati, looked just like it. Last example, I'm the guy that always wanted a Lamborghini. I mean, I had pictures that, Lamborghinis growing up. And what's funny is my son collected models of exotic cars. He had like 30 or 40 of them when he was 9 years old, the McLarens and the Porsches and the Ferraris. And he had a model of the exact same color and style Lamborghini that I ended up getting. In fact, let me show you something. So this is my planner. Okay, it's on today. Friday the 29th. In the back of this thing are pictures that have been in here for 20 years. Okay. So if you can't see this, if you're on iTunes, I'm showing pictures they're in plastic. They've literally been in here for 20 years. It used to be a daytimer. Luckily the hole's lined up, but it's Franklin Covey now. And the first pictures are my gratitude pictures. Why? Because everything you want in life comes from gratitude. This is the core emotion to get what you want in life. Okay. So these are pictures of my kids are 30 and 26. These are pictures when they were babies and kids, right? Then I've got pictures of the things that I wanted. This top picture looks just like the house on the beach that I built. I had 10-foot high glass like that, butt together, travertine floors like that. And I lost that house in all the craziness. Okay. But now I live in a compound, and you can see the bottom pictures there, how you see the white stone walls in those 2 pictures. This is a picture of my backyard. See the stone wall behind me? Is that freaking crazy? Yeah. Now, what's funny is I lost that house and all the craziness. Now I have this compound. I've got 6 buildings. I've got a big main house, 2-bedroom guest house on the water. I just saw my daughter on the camera. She's staying there right now. I've got a media building with a video studio I built because I had to go virtual. I've got exercise facility, theater room. I mean, it's really nice. But because God's got a sense of humor, my old house that I lost is right across the bay. It's right out my backyard. It's hilarious. But anyway, and then I've got, pictures in here of stupid stuff that I thought was important. I've got a few $100,000 worth of watches and the Lamborghini before I ever got it. And again, none of this stuff may interest you guys, but replace it with what does, okay? Yeah. The Rolls Royce, the Bentley, all the stuff that I got because I had pictures. So get pictures, put them around you, put them on your screensaver, do vision boards. I've got multiple vision boards. Why? Because it freaking works.
Yeah. So thank you. I 100%, I wanted you to dig into that because I think that's the most important thing anybody can do. Here we are, October, getting ready to end the year strong, I hope, or you may just be getting ready to take 2 months off for the holidays.
No, work for me.
Right.
Buddy.
I mean, there are two different people there. Which one of those are you going to be? Right. So start with the gratitude.
Can I share one thing before I forget? Please. It's really important. It's really important. Okay. As it relates to goals. So I told you about that house I built on the beach, right? And I mean, this place was spectacular. 12-foot wide waterfall from the second floor balcony into the pool, giant spiral staircase up to the middle of the house with carved iron around it, and, elevator, wine cellar. I mean, just spectacular. And in fact, the second floor, I built aquariums around the staircase, cost me almost $200,000. So this gives you an idea of the house. So I worked for this thing for 20 freaking years. Okay. 2 months after I moved in, 20 years, 2 months, 2 months after I moved in, I'm floating in the pool at night, and it's changing colors. It's got fiber optic lighting. And I'm looking up at this testament to my ego, which is really what it was. I built this house to prove the world I was good enough. And, when I got thrown into school at 6 years old, I got beat up in school a lot. I found out what bullies were. I got, I had things happen that every kid has happened. I got humiliated on the playground by some girl I had a crush on. And I used to think that I wasn't good enough. And so, this was how I was showing the world I was good enough. I built this freaking house. And I'm looking up at this thing and I got depressed. And I don't mean just a little depressed. I mean, I was really depressed. I'm like, what the hell? I've just achieved success like times 1,000. I've got the Maserati in the garage at the time, Benzes and boats and jet skis and all the crap. But I was depressed. Beautiful family in the house, beautiful, incredible home. and I was depressed. And so there were several things going on. This is really important. I want to share before we cut off here. One was, if you're going to achieve a big goal, for God's sakes, have other goals lined up behind it. Because like the good book says, without a vision, the people perish, and you've got to have a vision for the future, right? Secondly, it's never about the goals. They say the happiest days of a boat owner's life, the day they buy it, the day they sell it. It's never, but you need the goals to push you and propel you. But it's about progress and growth. Happiness comes from progress and growth. It's like, what the hell am I going to do now to grow? And so that was the second thing. But the big thing that I wanted to share is, I had been totally focused on me. Rod, show the world I matter. Show the world I'm good enough, right? And so I went out, I was like, man, I don't want to sit on a couch and work through this. So I went out and bought some books. I got Dale Carnegie, Andrew, I got Napoleon Hill, and I got a Tony book, right? This is when I first introduced to Tony. I got his Unleash the Power Within, and I got about halfway through that. I didn't even finish the book. I'm like, man, I like this. So I went and saw him live. And I saw that he fed families for the holidays, his basket brigade. I'm like, what a concept. Do something for someone else. And yes. I'm embarrassed to say I had to be 40 to get that memo. But I called my brother because I was going to see him for Thanksgiving. And I said, we're going to feed 5 families. So he called his church, said, who really needs help? Third family changed my life. We got toys for the kids. We got this, a single mom with 5 kids. She lived in a 1-bedroom, wasn't even a 1-bedroom. It was a crappy 1-bedroom because she had to walk through the bedroom to get to the kitchen. But she was in there with 5 kids. She comes out and she sees the frozen turkey. She sees the food. She sees the toys. She starts crying. Her kids come out. The older ones start crying. I start crying, and I'm freaking hooked. And please know what I'm going to share with you now is not ego. There's a message here, so stay with it, okay? I've now fed over 110,000 kids for the holidays. I've done tens of thousands of backpacks filled with school supplies to local kids here. It's astounding. We live in the greatest freaking country on earth, and they don't have the basic supplies for school. Tens of thousands of teddy bears for officers, local officers, to keep in their cars if they encounter a child that's been traumatized. And the reason I bring this up is, Brian, you and I know we've been taught to believe you must achieve to be happy, right? We have this mindset that you got to achieve. You want to be happy, achieve to a certain level to be happy. I'm going to tell you, if you give back, you are happily achieving. So you might be listening to me saying, okay, yeah, I'll do it when I have the money. I'm going to tell you, don't do that. Find a cause right now, be it children like me or the elderly or the environment or animals or whatever the hell it is, and give right now. Why? Because you'll be happily achieving. Tony Robbins calls it the science of achievement versus the art of fulfillment. Achievement is a science. You want to learn multifamily? I will give you the blueprint and the map, and you just do what I say, and you will be a success. I just interviewed a guy earlier today. $4 million worth of assets in 1 year. The blueprint is there. That's a science, but fulfillment is an art. You've got to figure out what you're passionate about and give to that now. And I'm going to tell you, when you do that, you'll be happily achieving. And as importantly, the success is going to come faster, because that's the way God of the universe works. Whatever you give, you get back tenfold. You agree with me, Brian?
Oh, yes.
Yes. All right.
Yes, we all know that to be true, right?
Right.
The one thing you said is, let's do it today, right? Don't wait. Right. Because the sooner you do it, the sooner you get. Growth and contribution are what make you happy. Those
are the two most important.
And gratitude, right? Gratitude. Everything starts with gratitude.
Yeah.
And so make sure you do that. The one thing I'd like to just sum up here, Rod, I've loved our time together.
Thank you, bud.
I could spend days and weekends with you.
Likewise.
Already. The one thing I just want to point out, now's the time, you guys. You're listening to this podcast today. You've heard a great message here, and act on it. It'll change this year. It'll change next year, and it will change your life forever. That's all I say.
Yeah. Let me give some resources here, some free resources. So my website has a ton of free stuff on it, books, articles, videos. Just go to realestatewithrod.com, because my name's hard to spell. Rod Khleif is the name of the site.com. But if you go to realestatewithrod.com, it'll point there. It'll take you there. Tons of free stuff. I also have the largest multifamily Facebook group on the planet. If you go to multifamilycommunity.com, it's a direct link to that group. But listen, if you can come to the boot camp, for God's sakes, if you can make it, I promise you'll be glad you came. Text multifamily to 72345 and remember the code RodFriend. You get those 2 courses in my book immediately, so you can get started. If you listen to my podcast, that's a great way to get started as well, because some of the content I'll be covering, it'll help demystify that.
So will you tell us again what your podcast is?
Yeah, it's called Lifetime Cash Flow Through Multifamily Properties. And, I'm usually, if you put in real estate as one word, I usually come up in the top 3 or 4, but Lifetime Cash Flow Through Multifamily Properties, you'll really enjoy it. Even if you're not going to do multifamily and you just want to get juiced, you're on your way to a listing appointment, pull that up and listen to one of my Own Your Power clips, and I'll juice you. There's music, and it's 5 minutes, and I promise you, you'll be motivated and juiced after you listen. And I've got hundreds of them on there. It's it's one thing I just absolutely love doing. So I hope you'll check that out. Brian, I really appreciate you having me on, brother. Thank you.
Hey,
and I appreciate you.
I feel blessed. I feel blessed. My life has been blessed just spending this hour with you. So thank you so much for joining. And everyone, thanks for joining the show. Really appreciate you guys listening. And this is the kind of people we get when you guys listen to the show. So please go give us a rating, and we'll see everybody next week. Thank you so much, Rod.
Be well, buddy.
Thank you for joining us on our podcast. If you have an interest in a free 7-day trial of Sisu, go to sisu.co, sisu.co. Make sure that you use the coupon code GRIT, that's GRIT, to waive all your setup fees and receive a 10% discount on your subscription. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast and want to subscribe, search GRIT, the Real Estate Growth Mindset, on iTunes, Spotify, or Podbean. And with that, we'll catch you next time. Take care.